guys, how's it going? Welcome to this week's recap video. It is chilly and wet outside.
Feels good though.
It does. We got a bunch of rain and it feels like the first legit fall day, like could start a fire sort of fall day.
I don't know. It's been such a slow descent into fall for us. Like what, a month and a half of just like progressively cooler temperatures.
Imagine
instead
that.
of just, like having a nice fall.
We had one year when it was way before we started doing, making videos. I was down at the garden center and I think it went from it was close to 40 down to 9 degrees.
Like the lows were 40s?
Yeah. So the lows up to that point had been right around 40, hovering. And then one night it went down to 9. And it killed big mature thundercloud plums were the most affected, but a lot of roses went and a lot of other things. It was a bang up spring for us the next year, but it was a real shame.
Bang up spring in terms of sales at the garden center. People replacing all their stuff.
Yeah. Except for the things that they had planted. I think at that point, that was when we started instituting, we will not guarantee through a winter.
Oh, yeah.
So we can't control that.
Right.
We'll guarantee through, I think it was the first part of winter, but not through December and January, which is less absurd than doing it for an entire year. But anyway, also I did want to mention, this is exciting, we do have some more stuff up on our website. We will link down below, but we are heading right into bulb planting season. So we have power planters, the Laura Edition ones up, which I'll be using a lot of.
We have most of the power planter products on the website.
Really?
Yeah.
Cool.
Kind of excited about it.
Yeah, so the ones on the Laura Edition ones I'm really excited about because the flighting or the metal part that's looks like a screw kind of, that's much smaller than on the standard ones, so it's a lot more lightweight. And when you are standing there and lifting 1,000 times to plant 1,000 bulbs, it cuts down significantly on what is it? Not wear and tear on your body, I guess.
What is the word?
The wear throughout the day on your body. Yeah, you just feel a lot
Fatigue,
better.
maybe?
Yeah, so there's a 2-inch and a 3-inch, or 3.5 inch, can't remember, 3-inch, with the Laura Edition flighting. So anyway, let's jump in to this week's video, which the first one was Pathway to the Heartley has begun, plus cleaning the monster tomatoes and vines out of the raised beds. So the Pathway to the Heartley had begun that day. It's now finished, which I don't know if that's going to be in this. We'll see. I don't even know what videos are in this last week's lineup. We have so much going on right now. But so Pedro and his crew had started in on the pathway, and so we showed you kind of the dig out process and some of the underlayment stuff. Is that a word?
Yeah, sure.
I feel like I'm all over the place this morning. So we showed you just what progress they had made up to that point. And then I had to clean out some just big old beast tomato plants in our raised beds and vine crops. And it had gotten cool enough to where the tomatoes had taken on that weird, tangy, cold twang. It's why you don't put your tomatoes in the refrigerator.
Can you still use them in sauces or canning or anything like that?
Not with that flavor.
Oh. Good for the pigs, though.
Yeah, I think I'm sensitive to that.
Are you?
Yeah. Because Alyssa was saying, I don't notice it. I'm still gathering tomatoes out of my garden. And so I wonder.
You are sort of in tune with certain tastes and smells, I feel
am.
like.
Yeah, I am a little bit. I've always had that strong
sense of smell. Sounds.
Yeah.
A little misophonia kicking in.
Maybe. So Butterflies Rose said, did the sweet romance lavenders survive that crazy melon growing all over them? They did survive it. I was kind of watching them a little bit anyway. If it looked too smothered, I probably would have scooted them out of the way. There was one that was already dead that I had noticed earlier on that spring, and it's right next to that electrical.
Yeah, right.
There's a little round electrical access.
Yeah.
And that we had to kind of bump lavenders a little bit further apart from each other to plant them in the beginning. One of those had already died, and so that one's still dead out there, and it was sort of under the vine, but all the other ones look really good. Brenda Braun said, what about using drip tape in the raised bed garden? Seems a shame to have the drip tube clog up on you all the time. I think that's the approach we're going to take next year. You got to do something different. Our drip tape doesn't seem to clog up, but that 1/4 inch is the worst.
Well, you can even keep the 1/2 inch where you've got it and just come off the 1/2 inch with the drip tape.
Yeah.
We tried that in the cut flower garden one time, coming off 1/2 inch line with drip tape, and it didn't actually work as well as the 3/4 inch. But I think that was because it was such a large area.
Yeah, the run was a lot longer.
Yeah, so I think if you're doing small runs, half inch is fine.
So I didn't cut any of it out. So I could just pop out the 1/4 inch emitters and just pop in the drip tape and run those.
Except for maybe like every other where you've got the 1/4 inch, right? Just plug every other, right?
Well, those connectors for the drip tape are so much bigger than the 1/4 inch couplers that if we pop the 1/4 inch coupler out and pop one of those drip tape connectors in, I think it's going to be plenty. Like, I don't think it's going to be loose.
Yeah, sure.
We'll have to test it.
Yeah.
See what happens. Pam said, did anyone catch the variety of cucumber Laura is growing? That is a we call them Suyao longs, but I think it's Suyo is how you say it, maybe. Suyo. They're an amazing cucumber. They grow, well, you saw, they grow long, kind of like an English cucumber a little bit. They grow long and thin, and they don't get that real seedy inside unless you let them get massive, like I did let a few of mine get. But the chickens like those. They love the seeds. Rebecca said, is there anything the pigs can't have? What if you did treat the plants with something, even organic? I kind of leave that up to Paul and Bethany. I don't know much about pigs. I've never raised pigs before. They take all kinds of stuff to the pigs. And I know we get some notes and stuff about how the tomatoes are toxic to the pig. No. Their pigs are still like rocking.
Yeah.
They don't get sick. They eat so much stuff, which is so awesome. I love that. Like when we were, I just picked some apples out in the orchard, and the wormy ones I put in a basket and just popped it right in the back of Paul's truck. And I told him, like, take those to the pigs. It's so nice that there's an outlet for those things that are like these were very imperfect apples, like not even salvageable around the worm runs in them. So anyway, that's nice. Billy Joe Bob said, when you started, I just couldn't see your vision. Now it's like you actually had a plan and everything is fitting together nicely. I'm so glad it appears that way. Is there anything you wish you would have done differently? I don't think there's a couple.
Regarding what specifically?
Well, I think maybe around the Heartley, like the pathway around the Heartley. In terms of like all of our projects, I think we're in agreement on this, something we might have done differently is done a thicker border on the west fence line by the cut flower garden. Instead of doing just the row of arbs and then the little service road and then the cut flower garden, we would have probably made that like at least 20 feet deep, if not 30, and done mixed border of evergreens so that it was thicker and a little bit more interesting. It's very efficient and very tidy, and those arbs will grow up, but they'll never grow up so much that you won't be able to see the roofs of the other houses.
Yeah.
So
I think you're right. I remember the decision-making process at the time was like you wanted to maximize your cut flower garden space. And so you made it as big as you felt that you could.
Yeah.
And kind of like everything else goes by the wayside. But we weren't really thinking about, like, that was the most important thing, was the cut flower garden space.
And the lane. We knew that we needed to bring out our old lane onto the new property in the same kind of, like, it needed to look to scale with how big that piece of property was. So we had to bring it way down to where we did in order to make it look like it belonged and that everything fit nicely. So in terms of like how things fit, it's great.
Yeah.
It's just that we missed that kind of ability to do a thick border.
What would you have done? Would you have made a smaller cut flower garden, or would you have like angled it differently?
I mean, maybe you do something in the corner and you come off of it like an L instead of, instead of doing it straight. I don't know. I love how it's positioned. I love that the shed faces the house.
Yeah.
There's not a lot that I would change.
Yeah, it's tough because I don't even really know how we would have repositioned the cut flower garden.
Yeah. I mean, you certainly could do it smaller.
Yeah. But it's kind of nice the size that it is.
Yeah, it gives you the flexibility to do some larger things if you want, and grow wheat if you want. And I need to get on it if I'm going to plant wheat this fall. See what happens there. Zen Rock Garden said, so nice to see the empty beds. It feels like you can let your shoulders drop a bit, for sure. Question, do you have a way of preserving the cucumbers as they are besides pickling? Is there a way besides pickling with cucumbers?
I don't know.
I don't either. I can't imagine you can freeze them, right? They just turn mushy and watery when they thaw. Yeah. Right? I've never really looked into that. We're not like massive cucumber eaters. That's why I planted that one, just the one. Well, I guess there was 2 hills in that one bed, but I planted them late and thought, we don't get any, it's totally fine. Yeah. We won't miss them. Lynette said, Pedro and his crew are very talented. Yes, they are. Beautiful gardens you all are creating. Question, how will you prep your fruit trees for winter? When and what will you use? We put 2 peach and 2 pear trees in this spring, and I'd like to properly take care of them through the winter zone 6. We don't do anything to prep our trees for winter. We just go in with our liquid copper and the horticultural oil that we mix as a dormant oil later on in the winter. And I've done a couple of videos when we sprayed those. I did one this spring. Usually there's a 3 three-step
process.
Yeah. Like once after all the leaves have fallen, once on a really nice day in January, and once right around Super Bowl Sunday, usually. Was the schedule. But the orchard growers around here say as long as you hit that last one, that third in that schedule, you'll probably be good. And that will take care of overwintering diseases and some overwintering insects. It does not, however, take care of codling moths, which is something that you will see in a video here really shortly. I talked about my issues with codling moths in the apples and kind of what I'm thinking about doing next year. It just got to a point where I could have been spraying my apples, and there's only 2 very small apple trees at this point, and so little things like that do tend to fall through the cracks when you're super busy in the spring, and apples have to be sprayed every 2 weeks until the end of July after about 2/3 of their petals have dropped. But we were seeing such a huge amount of bumblebees and pollinator activity, and I was kind of like shifting my focus on how I wanted to attack all the bad bugs out there. And we released the predatory mites, and it just felt counterintuitive to go out there and spray. Even the 2 small apple trees, I'm like, oh, I don't know if I want to do that. So I'm looking at some different approaches to handling the codling moths next year. It might come down to removing the apple trees, because I don't know if I want to have something that's so prone to worm damage when apples are abundant in our area.
Well, our neighbors have an apple orchard. Do they spray?
Probably.
I've never seen anybody out there spraying. Do you?
They tend to their trees really.
Yeah, but I've never seen anybody spraying.
I've never seen them either.
And
but they're clean.
They give us, they're clean. They give us apples.
But yeah, they're very abundant in our area. You can pick up boxes of them for really inexpensive. So it's one of those things that I have to decide, like, do I want to battle that? So maybe we'll try the organic approaches next year and see what happens. If we have some clean apples, we might keep going on with it. Next video is plant them high, they won't die. Planting more trees on the new properties. So we planted a heritage oak, a red bud called Vanilla Twist, and then 3 Spartan junipers. And then I planted a few, like a buddleia and some other things in the south garden after we were done with the trees. And it's looking good out there. Yeah, I mean, I feel like the layering is kind of starting to happen just a little bit on a very small scale. There's a lot of pretty colors and textures out there. That's gonna be super pretty. Carol McDonald said, watching your videos is the better part of my daily routine, so thank you. Is there something we can do to get Proven Winners plants in local nurseries in California? I love seeing your successes and want to try them in my garden, but we see very few Proven Winners here, never superbenas, not superbenia. Superbenas or supertunias. That is odd. I thought in California.
In the early days, one of the owners or partners of Proven Winners, Euro America, right? Did we go there? No. We went to a different greenhouse.
Yeah.
But I think Euro America was still going at that time. They're no longer a partner of Proven Winners, but they were based in California. So at that time, maybe there was more PW, but I don't really know the answer to that. It feels like California is a little bit set apart. Like I know, here we work with like Proven Winners and Espoma, and I don't think like Espoma has a ton of their products in California either. But like if you go to the East Coast or even where we are, you'll find. I mean, like on the East Coast, didn't they tell us that they are in like 98% of garden centers along the East Coast? So you can pretty much find it wherever you go. And then, Proven Winners is mostly based in like the Michigan area. You can find their stuff kind of wherever, but California is sort of like a dry spot for at least those 2 things.
They just seem so close to where we are at. It just seems odd.
Yeah, like for us, I mean, you mentioned it maybe in the last recap that like it feels like Proven Winners is just everywhere you go where we are. I mean, like, pop-up shops that sell only Proven Winners and stuff like that. So like for us, it's not hard to get a hold of them. I
mean, definitely worth talking to your garden centers. Whoever is ordering your things at a garden center, they could probably shed more light on that too. Janet said, I love oak trees. What kind of oak is it? That was a heritage oak. So it grows 50 by 40, turns yellow in the fall, does lose its leaves, and does have acorns. And we positioned it in the very back because of its mature size. It'll get very large, but also because it can drop all the acorns it wants in the back, and it's not going to be over walkways or over a lawn or anything like that. It's kind of the perfect location for a tree that's got a little bit of a mess factor going on.
Yeah.
Melissa said, so I guess it's not going to be a pasture for ponies. Bummer. We'll see.
It's funny, like we're only doing the outside edge.
Yeah.
We're doing like a 30 foot barrier. And, you know, one of the reasons we talked about doing a berm, and one of the reasons that I was a little bit against doing a berm right up next to the fence is that I feel like from the tip of the berm down to the fence would kind of be like a no man's land.
Yeah.
We would never go to that side of the berm, and I'm afraid that we might not like take care of it as well if it's out of sight.
Sure. That's
you know?
way out of sight.
If it's
back
like
there.
a berm that only our neighbors can see, like just that one side of the berm.
Well,
that,
thankfully,
like,
there's no neighbors right there. It's ditch and then like massive wooded area.
well, I guess I'm talking about the other side where we're planting all the trees.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah, you're right.
know. You just don't want to create a situation where you have an area that's sort of like out of sight, out of mind, and you're not tending to it as well as other areas.
Right. You just
Because usually
wouldn't.
for us, if we see that something needs attention, we'll take care of it.
Right.
Sometimes.
So Seam said, would you please tell me the length and width of the augur? So you're using the 9-inch augur during that. And
there's only one
and
length.
It's 28 inches,
Yeah.
right?
And I linked it down below. So,
Yeah, it is.
although that goes to Power Planter's website, you now should buy it from gardenanswer.com.
Oh. Shameless plug, Karen. Jill Jones said, for the highlights video, Laura, do you cut your phlox back after their first flush and this is their second flush? Yes. So we shear them back after their first and then they come back. So it does take a little while in between. It's not like they're in bloom the whole entire season, but a lot of perennials aren't. They kind of, go in and out. So, yep, shear them back, and then if you have a long enough season, they'll flush back and bloom again for you. Lori said, what about watering in the oak and then water during the rest of the year until established? So Paul and Bethany actually filled up the water tank and came behind where we were planting, and they watered in the trees really well. The ones we planted along with the other trees have already been dripped in, and the drip has been running, so they're all settled in. And the oak, we're just watering by hand just because it's so late in the season. We're not going to go to the trouble of putting a drip system all the way out for that one tree until next spring, which we will do. But it doesn't need very much water right now. That's
yeah,
the
well,
one,
I mean, like it's raining right now, so.
That's the one beauty about planting in the fall. Like it's so much easier on the plants. Well, I guess on us, maybe not on the plants necessarily, depending on what point.
Well, the plants require less things, and they don't get stressed.
Right. So next year, we will probably water. I mean, it's one of those things that we're going to have to watch because we did plant it high. So we want to make sure that the top of that root ball, it's all nested in a bunch of compost. So it's probably going to be fine, but we'll keep our eyes on them and make sure that they don't dry out, which might mean in the heat of the summer, since it's like technically in its first year being planted, we might water it every other day.
So here's a question. The people that are like questioning the planting it high thing, what's the difference between planting the way we're doing it and planting on a berm? Riddle me that. Right?
That is a,
like
question
people
for
plant,
thought.
people plant on berms all the time.
Right.
And what we're basically creating is just like a single berm just for the tree.
Right.
You know?
And it's not like we're putting a scant amount of compost. It's a lot.
No, it's a ton of compost.
Yeah, it's a whole tractor scoop load per tree.
Yeah. Or sometimes 2 tractor scoops. That's a lot of, so we're basically we're berming it up a lot, but we're berming it to the point where the plant can was, you know. So it's certainly not, because as we add compost and mulch and things like that around, we're going to be raising up the level around it. And I don't want it to be in a divot or in a hole
in a bowl.
after we do the so yeah, I don't understand the people who are kind of like, I'm not sure about this. Because people plant on berms all the time.
Right.
And nobody ever says, oh, it's going to die. You planted on a berm. I'm mad about it.
Are you? I can tell. A little bit of sass coming out. Sue Ann said, I just love Samantha's sweet little night. I know you play the piano, Laura, but do you sing also? No. I don't remember. Samantha's little night was almost in a singing voice and sounded so sweet. Wonder if she inherited it from you. No.
Well, you sing. You have like a fine voice. You're not like a professional singer. It's not,
I sing to the kids.
Yeah.
Like, that's it.
But you have like just as good of a singing voice as anybody else.
You sing.
I don't sing.
Yes.
I sing, but it's not like I derive.
You have a fine voice, Erin.
Well, thank you.
You're welcome. Oh, high praise. Samantha is driven by music, though.
Oh, big time.
Oh, man. She gets the feels. Like, I don't know, I remember what song you were playing, but last night, it was all quiet. We were playing with that foam, like kind of foam Play-Doh stuff. We were sitting at the table, she and I, and she was just like, talking, and then Erin turned on a song, and she got quiet. And she just listens, and it was kind of a melancholy song, and she went, and she just like, And then when the song was over, she picked her head back up and she goes, more music.
Yeah.
Yeah. Connie said, when the soil is that dry, do you ever fill the hole with water and let it drain, then plant the tree? If we ever use water in the hole, which we do occasionally if we're in the mood, we don't let it drain. We just put the water in the hole and put the root ball in there and pack the soil in. I don't know that there's like a 100% this is how you have to plant a tree. I don't really like that kind of mentality anyway. We do a lot of experimenting, and most of the time it works. So we get lucky,
like
I guess.
How many trees have died that we've planted in the last, say, like 4 years?
Well, the ginkgo, that little ginkgo died.
Yeah. The red, that purple tree out there.
The red bud?
The
Yeah,
red
but
bud?
that wasn't a planting issue.
No, probably not. But
And that
like,
one is coming back.
Yeah, we should have cut that down because you're like, it's coming back like 20%. Like, I don't want a 20% tree.
Cindy Joe said, Aaron, do you have any scientific reporting about planting trees high? Or is this just your hunch? I would love to plant my trees high. It's a lot less work, it is. But I can't afford to lose all the trees that I have to plant.
Again, I like, my blood boils a little bit. I don't have any scientific anything, but I've seen and have planted trees on berms, and I just don't see what the difference is.
So it's your hunch. There's no scientific
Yeah,
reporting.
I guess it's my hunch. I think that you should plant a tree to where in the end the soil comes to, where it is in its nursery container. Unless, like I've seen videos of people pulling away some of the soil from the nursery container and finding out that what's that called? The root flare is actually quite a bit lower. So I think that's fine if you kind of root around in there to see where the root flare is. But in terms of, you just want your soil level generally about the same as where it is in the nursery can. And maybe in the nursery can, or maybe the plant is just like a half an inch, above that.
Yeah.
It seems reasonable to me.
Right.
I don't know. It doesn't even seem like something that anyone would question.
Right. Okay. The Buzzy Bumblebee said, what kind of trees grow in your area natively? Junipers. Elms. Trash elms. Not good elms.
Russian olives.
Oh, yeah. In wetter areas.
Junipers.
Yep, junipers.
Oh, you said that.
Junipers, elms, and only the elms and Russian olives and any kind of like, sometimes you'll get like poplar type or birch kind of, but only in wetter areas like around water. And that about does it.
I can't think of, I actually Googled it the other day.
Oh, you did?
And it's like, it's impossible to, I think that whole like native thing just doesn't really apply to us. It's like, it's a thing that applies to most of the world in the United States, but.
When a tag says native, and I mean, this is a very like surface level knowledge, but it's native to, it doesn't mean it's native to your area.
Well, there can be native to the United States.
Right, and that's maybe what it means, native to the United
But
States.
I don't think that's what people
that doesn't mean
mean.
it's going to live in your native area that you're from, Well,
the other thing is that there are some things that are like native that you don't want because they'll actually just take over. And so there's a part of the whole native thing that doesn't make sense to me because like there are invasive species that are native to the area. Or at what point is it native? Like it was brought in 200-300 years ago or something.
I don't think that would be a native though.
So like palm trees, for example, they're not native to California, I believe, right?
I don't know.
They were imported.
Oh.
But they'll thrive. And so is that considered a native now that they've been here for, a couple hundred years or no?
I don't know. I just think things need to be more specific in a lot of like you're native to the southern states or you're native to,
Yeah.
whatever.
But like anything that's native to Oregon doesn't feel like it would apply to us.
No. Well, because everything native to Oregon, they would lump it into the western side of the state, not our side.
So like you could maybe say native to Idaho, but even that's not correct because Idaho, I feel like is mostly like mountainous trees. And so you would see like pines and things like that, but they don't grow here natively.
No. We need native to the high desert of eastern Oregon, western Idaho. That's what we need.
Yeah.
On the tags. Next video is planting garlic, harvesting berries, and tagging some dahlias. I just had a few chores I needed to get done that day, and we planted like 248, I think, cloves of garlic, 2 different varieties in 4 of the raised beds that we had just cleared out. And then I did harvest a few little baskets of raspberries, some strawberries, and some blackberries. It's always fun in October. I don't know, like the longer you get into the season, even if you're getting little bits off of your plant still, it's such a treat. And then I've been working on, I only have the first 2 rows done still, but I've been trying to get our dahlias tagged with the proper identification on the tags so that when we dig them, they're already identified and we won't get them all confused. And it's easier to tag them when they're in bloom because then you can verify if that's actually the variety that you have sitting there. And I've seen so many that I have tagged out there, and like brand new ones that I bought this last year, and they're not true to what I bought. So I was able to identify them, which is really fun. And hopefully that will eliminate some confusion after storage. So How To House said, the dahlias are so beautiful. Were you able to find more B-man dahlias to replace the ones you lost? So I didn't find any B-man dahlias. One of you guys sent me out a tuber that did not end up growing. I potted it in the greenhouse because I had all of my spaces were full out in the dahlia area. And I thought, well, I want this to grow, and I'll just grow it on in the greenhouse, and then I'll harvest it and dig it and store it like I do everything else once it's time. I think it just stayed a little bit too wet in there and it didn't thrive. But that was really sweet of you guys. I did receive a bunch of B-man seeds though, so I can start some dahlia seeds. Super easy to start them from seeds. So I'll do that this winter, early spring, next year. Swati said, you are amazing and have inspired me so much. Do we need to keep watering garlic through the winter? We don't typically. I mean, we get just enough moisture to keep them fairly happy in those raised beds. I mean, if we have a really long dry spell, we might go out and splash a little water on them, but they don't require too much. Kel Hendrickson said, do you ever harvest the seeds from dahlias instead of doing tubers? I have tried for 2 years to store tubers and can't get them to not rot. So I'm thinking about getting the seeds and trying that this year, but I don't know a lot about harvesting the seeds. Florette has some good information on that. I've been noticing she's sharing some of those details on her Instagram. So you might check her out, because I haven't done a tremendous harvesting of seeds. I've started lots from seed though, like I just mentioned, and it's very easy to do. They're one of the easiest seedlings. However, they are prone to spider mites. So if that's something that you deal with in enclosed spaces especially, it can be a little bit of a problem. You gotta watch for that. Charmaine said, how many times have you changed out the soil in the raised bed since you first created the vegetable garden? Never. I started with that good, it was like a premium garden raised bed mix that we got locally. And then every time I swap out crops, I do the Biotone starter fertilizer, land and seed compost, so they're always getting recharged before each new crop goes in. Sometimes I have to kind of scrape some off the top. Like I had that one garlic bed this last year. I had a hard time, because I was having to supplement water it a little bit because the watering system was all plugged up, and the water would want to run because I just had the soil too mounded up in there. Mrs. T.A. said, is there a reason to buy garlic for growing instead of using bulbs you grew last year? I still have a lot from our first real crop last year, and I'm wondering if I can just replant some of those. You absolutely can. If you've got some nice big cloves, do it. We had such a meager crop this year, and I had tried some new varieties, and all of my Italian didn't grow because that whole line was plugged and I didn't realize it. So it was not getting watered. I just thought, you know what? I need to start with some nice new seed for this garlic. I'm going to start with fresh ones. So down at the garden center, I picked up it's Dugansky and Spanish Rojo, nice big cloves, and you want to, or big heads, you want to plant the bigger cloves. I did, when I was pulling them apart, run across some smaller ones that I'll just use in the kitchen, and I just made sure to use all the big nice ones in the garden. Elder Ramsey said, beautiful dahlias, where do you order them from? So several different places. I will pick them up at my parents' garden center. I've picked some up from Home Depot. In fact, I've got Snowbound and Bluebell out there that are super productive that came from Home Depot. Swan Island dahlias, Florette, Eden Brothers. I'll pick them up at garden shows if I see it, like the a la mode that we looked at in this video. That was from the Seattle Garden Show this past year. Yeah, I'm trying to think if there's anywhere else. You guys have sent me quite a number of tubers, which is really fun. It's always like a surprise variety. Yeah. T. Jacobs said, can you tell us how or where to purchase garlic to plant? I was told that the garlic at the grocery store wouldn't be good to plant. Sometimes they're treated with like a growth regulator or inhibitor or something like that, to where they'll start to grow and then the tops will just start to spin and they will never really form up a nice head. You want to get certified seed garlic. That's your best bet. So check with your local garden center. There are some places you can order it online as well. Janice Smith said, what kind of fertilizer did you use and what was the soil you put on top? Biotone starter fertilizer always, and the land and sea compost pretty much always at this point. We've been using that for 4 years now. Really good luck.
Wow.
Has it been 4 years? Probably. Yeah. Next video is planting climbing roses in obelisks, new pineapple lilies, and ground cover shrubs. It was a big planting day. In fact, I was kind of thinking maybe I should get out there in the next day or two. I need to go through what we have left and like plant things that still have leaves on them, because they won't for very much longer. Steph Myers said, can you grow roses inside the house? I think they need a cold period in order to be productive, because most of them are like, what, a zone 5 through 9-ish. Some will go up to a zone 10, so they do need a certain amount of cold air hours and like a certain amount of time to sleep in order to like wake up and be happy to produce
Needs to
flowers
hibernate.
again. Yeah. Felicity Smith said, love your garden and especially your pond area. Also love cotoneasters. I have a few in my garden and they take really easy from cuttings. Do you ever plan on doing any cuttings to be able to spread things around your garden for free? We were just talking about that with the tiger eye sumacs. Maybe when I go in there to like root out some of what has spread, maybe we'll pop those out in the new property. That'd be a perfect area to let things like that spread. Cotoneaster, you guys, I'm hopefully not alone. When I very first saw that plant, I called it a cotton Easter.
That seems like a legitimate
I know.
mistake to make.
It does. Claudia Bozo said, aren't pineapple lilies bulbs? Mine are. They need to be dug up before frost. Yeah, from what I understand, they are bulbs that you want to plant like 6 inches deep, maybe, if I'm not mistaken. I don't know a lot about it. It's Eucomis, Eucomis. But on the tag, they say zone 6 through something. I'm like, well, we're zone 6. So maybe the bulbs will survive out in the ground. I don't know. It's a new one for me.
Give it a shot.
Yep. Cheryl said, when you are planting climbing roses using obelisk, do you twist them around the structure or do you just let them grow out the sides? Both. Because I've been twisting mine around the structure of the obelisk and the only place they bloom is at the top. I was hoping for blooms around the sides, but I'm not getting that. You need to bend some of those canes. So if you can bend them horizontally, because what they'll do is kind of like on a climbing rose, when you've got your canes coming up, you kind of want to bend them this way and attach them, because then they'll form up new wood this way and bloom along. I've done the video when we did the zephyrines on the chicken coop, and maybe we can link that down below. It's kind of more of a detailed explanation on how I prune my climbing roses to where we get a lot of roses from top to bottom. So you do want to not just twist them up, but twist them this way so that there's a lot of horizontal branching going on. Miss Corgi said, will you put a leaf net over your pond? You know, I've been thinking about that because I'm following, Team Aquascape. Brian, who was here and designed the pond and did a bunch of the work, part of the Aquascape team, he has been posting videos of netting ponds. And so they just put a giant net over the pond as the leaves fall, and then once the leaf fall is done, leaf drop, they can take the net off and it doesn't clog anything up.
Does make sense.
Yeah. I mean, we do have a lot of leaves around the pond, but there's not huge tree canopies yet. Yeah. The biggest one is the Sensation box elder, and that's off to the side a bit. Most of the leaves I'm noticing are down below, but Paul's also like super on it. Yeah. And we were just talking about this. I told Aaron, like, nothing ever seems like a mess. And so maybe I give skewed opinions, like that tree's not messy. Yeah. Because Paul's like constantly going around, and he does leaves in smaller amounts. Like he doesn't wait till they all fall down. He'll just go around and it's like a routine, just constantly cleaning stuff up. So it's always like, or it's never a great big chore, So anyway, that's something that we'll probably have to think about though as our trees get bigger.
So the solution is either to get a net or a Paul.
But not our Paul.
Not our Paul.
Corky Stone said, just wanted to say how much I love your videos and how wonderful your place has come along. I have a question about your North Pole arbs and if you trim them to keep shape or if you guys wrap or tie them for winter.
I tied them this spring because they were all...
They were.
And you know what? This is the best year ever. Also, I upped the water on them too. Like, I think Arborvitaes are just like water. They're like, think of it like a bog plant. They need don't think of it like a bog plant. They don't want to sit in mud, but like the soil needs to be moist.
They need more moisture than you would think for an evergreen.
It's not like a tree. Like a lot of trees, you can water once a week, and just do like a deep watering, and it's fine. I think these are way more shallow rooted, and they're probably going to want water like every day or every other day, just to keep the roots moist. Right. So I think that's the thing is like, don't think of it like a juniper or a spruce or one of those evergreens, that like, oh yeah, we just, the rain waters it or whatever. It's not like that.
Also, because you were saying that yours bent over from heavy snow load, we get out there and like broom them off, but have you considered like tying them up for winter so you don't deal with any of that?
Yeah, I mean, they're tied up right now.
But not all the way.
Not all the way, but we also don't generally get like, it doesn't dump snow, and when it does, we go out. And so I think maybe if you're on it and you broom them off.
Yeah, it's either I'll see Paul out there doing it. I've done it a few times.
I think the danger is when it snows and then it freezes, and then that gets even heavier. And then it breaks branches. So if you can get out there like as it's snowing or right as you think you're at the end of the snow before it gets frozen.
Right. Missouri Artiste said, have you decided, Laura, what you are going to put on that tunnel of arbors in the south garden? I haven't made my decision exactly. And in the beginning of that video, I talked about how like I have these climbing roses, but I don't have any arbors right now to plant them on. And then I proceeded to walk underneath this like tunnel of arbors with nothing planted on them. The thing about that is that I would need more than just 2 impressionist roses to cover that arbor. And I don't know if I really want to go the rose route there because you know how roses are. I mean, our colettes are like, massive monster roses, and they don't always look like, they're not always in bloom, and they're kind of unruly. You have to be on it with trimming them, otherwise you get snagged by thorny branches. So I think I want to do something a little softer on that structure. That's why I put the impressionists in the obelisks. But no, I haven't decided quite. We'll see. Laura said the garden with the sun shining through was just beautiful. I haven't seen Cheddar lately. How is he doing? I've seen that comment a lot lately.
He's
Cheddar,
rocking.
Yeah, he's here. He's around. He's a lot more elusive, and he always has been more elusive than Russell. But now that Douglas is here, he's a little bit more elusive because Cheddar and like Russell and Douglas don't love each other, but they can like sit 4 feet from each other and just kind of like side-eye each other. Cheddar and Douglas can't do that. Cheddar is incredibly territorial.
Yeah.
Which is weird because...
But he's not as aggressive as Douglas is. Like, Douglas isn't aggressive, but like Douglas will stand his ground.
Yeah.
And Cheddar will cower.
Yeah. And Douglas just wants to be loved.
Yeah.
He just, his purr is so loud. And he hasn't been swiping either. I think he's getting more comfortable. I don't know. Maybe we'll find some harmony here one of these days. But Cheddar is around. I just gave him some loves last night. And the last video from this week was planting with beautiful berries for fall and winter interest. Plus the pathway from the Heartley to the house was completed. So I gave you a walkthrough of that. And it looks even better now because Paul and Bethany came through and they kind of smoothed out all the soil and did some compost over the top. It's so nice. Oh, Auntie Patty said, since you get heavy winds, how do you think the rose is going to do exposed as it is out there in the new area? I think it'd be fine. And that's one of the reasons why you generally plant roses a little bit low, because it helps with the rocking that sometimes they can experience. Mary Bollinger said, barberries, don't they have thorns? Yes, they do. That variety was the Sunjoy Tangelo that only grows about 3 to 4 feet tall and wide. So it's a little bit more contained. It's not like this massive shrub that we would have to tame back. So if we do plant the barberries out there, which they do look really pretty, and they're not an invasive plant in our area, you want to plant them somewhere where you can just let them do their thing, where you're not going to have to be walking. Those aren't near a walking path, and somewhere where you're not going to have to trim on them, which I think...
That was always the worst. I remember as a kid, I think that was why I hated barberries. It was such a common plant in our area, because I think they are pretty drought tolerant.
Yeah.
And people would plant them like against walkways.
Right.
Like, what a stupid idea.
Yeah. Get snagged by those
So
thorns.
as a kid, I was like, nope, don't
on,
like this.
On the bad list. Shalane said, how late into the fall can you safely plant perennials and expect them to survive the winter? I think the general rule of thumb that they give is 6 weeks before the first hard frost, which is anything below 28. So like 28 to 32 is a light frost, and 28 and lower is a hard frost. We keep planting until we can't plant anymore. And we generally have pretty good luck with it. It's a matter of keeping it wet, and then the insulation around the plant too, like, the mulching around your plant, because they're far better off in the ground than they are in nursery containers. So like if you're wanting to pick up plants on clearance at the end of the season, go ahead and plant them. I mean, I think they're better off that way than trying to winter them over in their containers. Maggie said, I loved seeing so many birds at your pond. They just sort of flitted away to a new spot near the water as you approached for plantings. What a lovely habitat you created. Not just me, a whole team.
Yeah.
A whole team of incredibly talented artists building that pond area. I mean, me just adding the little plants here and there afterward is a whole different, like, I feel, I don't know. It's
like you did the easy part?
Yeah, it was such a pleasure to walk in. And in this particular video, I was actually reviewing it, which I haven't been reviewing our videos. You've been doing most of it. I told Aaron, I looked up from the computer last night, and I was like, dang, the morning light coming through that air, it's just magic in the morning. And so pretty. And we have noticed a lot of wildlife around the pond. So fun. Question, any plans for bulbs in the new property? Something wild and informal for your little woodland border. Maybe one day, not this year, for sure. Lori said, hey Laura, do you give the prize like laptop, iPad, etc. by Telegram app? Is it a scam? That is a scam, for sure.
Anything Telegram
is a scam. Mark Shaw said, hi, I love your work. What is the longest you have kept a plant in a pot? Oh.
Maybe that arb that was sitting next to the chicken coop?
Yeah, which...
It was like 8 years.
Yeah.
Or longer.
Possibly longer. Yeah, I bet you that's the longest one.
It was rooting into the ground through the hole.
Yeah. The other one was the blood good Japanese maple I had for like 3 or 4 years in a big pot. Yeah, I've had some like that. I have had, where is it? Oh, it's in the Heartley. I have a cactus in the Heartley that I've had for almost our entire married life.
Oh, wow.
So we've been married for 17 years, and it's probably 15 or 16 in a pot, just chilling in the Heartley right now. It's made its rounds.
Yeah.
It probably loves its new life out there. I would, like, dang, I didn't know I was going to end up in something this nice. Joshua's Garden said, I heard in a recap video Aaron mentioning drip zones 70 and 72 when talking about drip issues. How many garden zones do you have on the property, and how do you know?
I thought about that later.
How do you know when a zone is full? I didn't catch you saying that.
Yeah, well, I was using it as an example because it is like that's the range that those zones are. Mm-hmm. Okay, so we have 150 zones, not all of them in use. And some of them are very, very small. Like they have like, 2 pots or 4 pots or something. But having the control of being like, I want these pots to go 20 minutes and I want these pots to go 10 minutes. Mm-hmm. I mean, in some cases, I wish I could even make it, smaller than that. Cause like you've got those pots that are overwatering kind of in front of the Heartley. But anyway, so there's 150 zones possible. We are using maybe around like 70 to 80 of them. Mm-hmm. We're using a lot of them from 1 to 75. There's a couple numbers in there that are not in use, but and then we've got some in use from like 76 to 90. Mm-hmm. But again, there's a couple numbers. So I don't think we have anything above zone 90.
Mm-hmm. It's a lot. But like one zone runs our cold frames in front of the Heartley. Yeah. One zone does the 4 pots at the corners of the Heartley, right?
Right.
Yeah. And then one zone does the 2 pots by the, not by the dumpster.
One zone does the 2 pots in front of the vegetable garden.
Oh, yeah. One zone does just the lavender.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. So it's very broken down. I mean, that might seem like it is an astronomical number of zones, but it's that 2-wire system. And Aaron, you wanted that.
Well, I was researching, and it seemed like so we could go to 225. That's like the max that our system can hold. Right now, I have it set up for 150, and I just thought, we need a lot of zones. Why limit ourselves? Mm-hmm. Like, why not go with a system where you can do that? Mm-hmm. So it made sense to me. So we just kind of went for that, and when you make gardening videos, it's like, try the one that has 200 zones.
It's been nice to have the ability to break it down into such small
There's
amounts.
A million things I really do not like about our system. I mean, if you don't need that many zones, I would not recommend it to anyone. Mm-hmm. I mean, I would go with Ratio. If you only need like 16 zones, go with Rainbird or something like that. Mm-hmm. Ours is Hunter, and I like it, but I only like it if you absolutely have to have,
that many.
More than 16 zones.
Right. And that is it for the questions this week. I just have to say that pathway, though, that Pedro and his crew did, is so nice. Now that the area is all mulched with compost and it looks so pretty, we do need to figure out how we're going to come out of the fireplace area because there is that little side access. And I like having as many pathways to areas as you possibly can because it just makes the flow feel better and it makes it feel less like tight somehow. Yeah. But we need to figure out how to come out from there and then also over to the Versailles garden. But as I was watching it's kind of helpful sometimes to see some of the angles I'm holding my camera at. I almost think it would be better to have more grass than we're thinking.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because I think if we have just this tiny little island of grass, it's going to look way too small for the Heartley. It needs to be like big enough to where it's weighty enough.
Sure.
So yeah, I don't know. It's going to be nice to live with it for the winter. We're not going to do anything now at this point in the season. We're moving on to other things, so we'll be able to really look at it and think through some things.
Might need to take a Jaker run to get like a spruce or something for right behind the
fireplace. Yeah, we'll want to set anything bigger that we want to plant. We'll want to get in first.
Yeah.
So we can just kind of drive over that area a little bit. But anyway, that's it, you guys. Thank you so much for watching this recap video. The sun has come out between when we started when it was gray and rainy, and now that it's like bright and happy outside, we're gonna go do some projects. So thank you so much for watching. Hope you're having a great start to your week, and we will see you in the next video. Bye.